I'm Gubbins. I thought I would talk today about something I see a lot in reviews and just posted on Reddit everywhere. It's a bit of a myth surrounding Jinhaos that, or at least I believe it's a myth. The parroted fact that they test their nibs, they dip test them. And I think that that's kind of a silly myth, but I see it everywhere, even on review channels that I highly respect. So I thought we'd have a little talk today about the myth of Jinhao dip testing their nibs. I have a lot of Jinhao pens. I like Jinhao pens a lot. This is about half of my collection of Jinhao pens. I think they're awesome. I really respect them for being an affordable entry point. I have friends all over the world who are only into fountain pens because they have Jinhao pens that they like. And I think that's awesome. I love my pens, but they aren't really the epitome of quality. I doubt they do testing. They are a brand who cuts every corner possible to end up with a pen that costs a few dollars. And I think that the claim they test these pens just because when you wash your ink the first time to get the factory oils out, somehow, like, you see that little bit of blue ink and everyone just thinks that thought that, oh, this has been dip tested. It's their marketing. They do that so that reviewers and people who make posts on the internet are going to go out and say, hey, this pen's been tested, and that somehow increases our opinion of their quality. So I think I just want to discuss it a little. First problem is I get a lot of Jinhao pens that don't work. This Dadao, it writes so poorly or so dryly that it's got problems railroading with baby's bottom, or it feels like baby's bottom, but it's not. It's a feed problem. Look, you can touch this feed. No ink comes off. You've got a little bit, but that's dry ink. It's not liquid, which is kind of ridiculous. That is a feed problem. I spread the tines work fine. I've used the nib on other pens. Excellent. But that is not something that you will discover if you do a dip test. This pen here, 100th Century, I have two of them. One of them has the same problem as that Dadao, the 9019, where the feed is just too dry. But this one has incredibly misaligned tine cuts, so that you have to write with this pen practically on its side to get a line. That's something which you're not going to find in a dip test, because when you dip the pen, that nib tip is completely saturated. It's not a good reflection of how the pen actually writes. So while this pen is usable, it's something that wouldn't pass the quality control of any other company. Lamy, Pilot, you don't get nibs like that. This pen, one of my 82s, which I beloved, I love the 82. It has a visual imperfection that anyone checking, this isn't really focusing too well, but there is a crack around this converter. It appears like a cosmetic problem, but once you fill, a little bit of air gets inside this converter and it burps. That's not something you're going to find with a dip test. Most of these problems you don't find with dip tests. But surely most of these problems are things you would find if you had anyone reviewing the process. So it seems illogical to me that they can't have someone just looking at these parts on a machine and pulling out the obviously deformed ones, but they would hire someone to dip this and write with it to an acceptable degree where you would find this is a good pen. Because you can get valid information from a dip test. It's just not going to come through until you've done a fair few paragraphs. And they're sure as shit not testing someone to write a paragraph with each one of these pens. They're $3. I have this X450 that is essentially a parts donor for my main pen, because this Fude nib just doesn't put ink on the table. I thought it was a feed problem, but this is actually genuinely one of the nib problems that you would find with a dip test. Because I have dip tested most of these pens to see, oh, is this something you would find with a dip test? No. This, absolutely, you would have picked up in a dip test. Because I have dip tested this pen, and it does not work. I have swapped the nib onto a pen that I know does work, and it doesn't work. This is one of the pens, or one of the situations, I don't know the problem, but it is absolutely a nib problem. This is a problem with the tip of the nib that you would have found with a dip test, but no, it showed up with me. So now this one working X450, oh, bit of an avalanche, with a Fude nib, is what I use. So I think at this point it's pretty clear that no, they're not hiring someone to dip and test your pens because they don't do that for any other part of the process. This is just a machine that drops a drop of ink onto the feed or the nib so that when you pick this pen up and you wash it out and you're like, oh, there's ink, you're going to mention that in your Reddit post. You're going to mention that in your YouTube review. And that's going to subconsciously change the viewers or your audience's opinion of this pen because it makes them think it's been tested. I'm not going to get a faulty one. And I think that is a very irresponsible thing to parrot. This is clearly a word of mouth marketing scheme that they are really paying attention to because Jinhao pays attention. They watch the Reddit threads. They realize, hey, people can mix and match. So they stopped gluing these components together. They released the 82 Mini with swappable parts, and they're slowly doing all of that whatnot. They interact with the community a lot. They're very keen on listening to what pen influencers and reviewers suggest, because a lot of the times they fix things. The X450 is an excellent example. Like the X350, the X750, they have iterated on these pens based on what we in the community say. So they're aware of what we're doing. They're aware of what we're saying. And they are intentionally marketing these pens through us. That is their marketing scheme. So I think if you're a pen reviewer or you do posts on Reddit or FPN, we should be a little more mindful of what's going on because they sure as shit aren't testing these pens. Maybe if you buy them from Etsy or eBay, from storefronts who have a reputation, yeah, you might get a tested pen because they have that quality that they're trying to maintain. And they sell these pens for 3 to 4 times the price on Taobao or AliExpress because they're probably throwing half of them out and they still need to make their profit as a middleman. So that's my spiel. I'm going to stop before this turns into a bit more of a rant because I love Jinhao. I have many. I plan to buy many more. And I just want to get this discussion going out there in the community because I'm kind of sick of seeing this parroted information. If you have better information and you know better, let me know in the comments. I'm down to listen. I'm really interested in what goes on because Jinhao are an awesome company for paying attention and listening and iterating their designs. I just think that this one aspect of their marketing is starting to approach a little bit of a gray area in terms of morality and consumer friendliness. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you all have a nice night and let me know your feelings about Jinhao and this little myth in particular. Good night.